Awesome. Okay, so hello and thank you for joining me for this month's full scope workshop. Today we have invited CEO and founder of All Ethos, Ethan Bach. Ethan will be talking to us about his company and what services they offer artists and art administrators. Before we begin, I would like to remind all attendees that this workshop is being recorded and will be posted on our county website and social media accounts. By participating in the workshop, you agree to be included in the recording. We will have a question and answer segment after the presentation. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can either raise your hand icon, or type it in the chat box and we will address them the best we can. Now, please welcome our speaker today, Ethan Bach. Thank you so much for your time, Ethan. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's our little promo that we had. First, just running through what we're going to be talking about today so you all know what to expect. So the intro, I'll do 10 minutes, approximately personal background, the journey, what got me here. Then we'll go into All Ethos work and achievements. We're going to focus on Luminous, which is the interactive projection mapping, which has been showcased in Fort Collins, Colorado. And then we'll go over some other notable works from All Ethos because we've been in business now 11 years. And then I wanted to go into current state of the nation. So as artists, we're always sort of reinventing ourselves. And I recently wrote 2 books about what's going on in the nation. And so I wanted to hit like what it will be for artists and organizations during this time. And then we'll do Q&A, of course. All right, so are we ready to be immersed? So let me do an introduction. I didn't go back beyond this, but really I cut my teeth when I was an undergrad, and I was actually studying environmental conservation at the time. I was literally in the woods calling spotted owls. And at the college I was at, which is the Evergreen State College, they do programs there, so you get stuck with a conglomeration of different courses and faculty. And they needed me to do a video project, and I didn't want to do it. So I tried to argue my way out of it, and they wouldn't let me argue my way out of it. So I had to do this video project, and I just fell in love with the process. And about telling my own story, about other people being able to tell their own story, not having to rely on a written word or my voice so much, but doing something that's more visual and engaging with an audience. And I changed my major, and the rest is kind of history on that mark. I really started out in like documentary and experiential storytelling through video. And as time went on, I got more experimental with it and started doing other things. And like many artists, once I lost my undergraduate access, I had to figure out how to make things work. Now, this is back in VHS. So I would literally take 2 VHS recorders and my television, and I would edit, or I had 3, I guess. So I'd edit, borrow someone else's, and I'd edit video using VHS decks at my house. And so it wasn't perfect, and it was definitely lo-fi, but I was able to still be creating work, and that's what was important. So realizing that, I think is an essence for all of us who are artists, is we do whatever we can, and it doesn't matter the quality. We don't have to say, oh, I can't do it because I don't have this $10,000 piece of equipment or whatever. We do what we can with what we got, and that's what really matters. So like many of us, I just worked odd jobs, and at night I would do my artwork, and that was my life for many, many years. And lots of odd jobs, right? I found myself working at the Institute of American Indian Arts in the administration section, and I decided through there, I was like, I really want to teach. And so I was teaching at night as an adjunct, but in order to be a full-time professor, you had to go to grad school. So that led me into going to grad school. And in grad school, I ended up at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. It's as nerdy as it sounds. They have an electronic arts department there. And I started learning like programming, working with engineers, roboticists, reading white papers, and doing full-on installations. So I was really interested in how do we create an experience that takes your whole body into it, right? Instead of, I love video, but there's something missing when you just have one single screen. When you come into an entire experience and the experience is interacting and reacting to you, I just fell in love with that. Not only that, but at the time, these kind of experiences could only be seen at like MIT, RPI, and very like fine arts sort of experiences. So I really wanted to take this and push it so that everyone could experience interactive, immersive art. So it's 2008 when I graduated from my MFA, and as we all know, 2008 the economy was down, and so I left upstate New York and I went back to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I ended up getting a job again at the Institute of American Indian Arts, which is a four-year college geared towards Native American students. And at the time, they were installing or about to install this thing called a digital dome, and I had no clue what that was. But once I learned what it was, it's sort of like a planetarium with an IMAX projection. It's the easiest way to describe it. I ended up getting hired there as the digital dome director, which means I teach classes and I do research for the dome. And what I found out for myself, and of course at night I do artwork, right? But what I found for myself is that this complex system, which was 5 projectors. It was a 2-ton piece of metal hanging from the ceiling, and it was the only movable dome in the world. I'll show you a video in a second. And the research was to make it easy to use for artists and to make it interactive. And no one else had done this. It was a really complex system of like multiple computers and all this stuff. And it took, for a 3-minute video piece, it would take 6 hours to prep it just to watch it to see if it worked. So you can imagine how cumbersome it was. So what I realized with my brain is that I love complexity, and that the more complex the issue, the system, especially when it comes to digital art, the happier and more calm my brain was. So this was a really good thing for me to find out about myself. So with that, I did research, I did a lot of writing papers, I did a lot of talks, I taught a lot of students, we did a lot of really great projects. I'll move on and just show you. So here's the dome in an animated version. So you can imagine the possibilities of what you can do in this as an artist, right? So you don't want people under it when it's moving, obviously, but we did some things where we do like sort of a mouse catch, is that the name of the game? Where we would put it all the way to the ground and the students would be underneath it and we would just be totally immersed in this.
Mousetrap, right? Mousetrap.
Mousetrap.
Yeah.
Yay, mousetrap students under there.
That's great.
And we do these really amazing works. We'd also could put it sideways like you saw there. And so we'd be able to do work that was, you could watch from the second story over there. So lots of cool stuff. The thing for me with that was that I still felt confined within the educational institution. So I left and I started an artist in residency program. I went to LA and I started teaching artists how to do artwork in the dome. Since I just developed all this curriculum and learned all these techniques, I thought, why not get other artists who don't have access to all this technology to be able to do it. So I started Morphos in LA and eventually moved it to Colorado. So again, like a good artist who loves suffering, right? we did this on a I did this all volunteer basically, and was able to pay myself a little bit to be able to travel to LA and all that good stuff. And then the artists were self-pay at the time. It changed. I was able to do this for 6 years. And we tried to move it over. This is when it kind of had a harder time, is when we tried to move it over where there was donations and it was run by just donations and stuff, and that made it a lot harder. And
I think we lost your audio, Ethan.
oh, you did. Okay, how about that?
Much better. Thank you.
Is that
Much better.
okay?
Thank you.
I apologize. The speaker, I forgot that it does this sometimes. We might switch in a minute if it does it again. So I moved to Denver, and I not only started, so I had Morphos, and I decided to start a nonprofit based around Morphos so we can do more K through 12 education, and started All Ethos Experiential Design Studio at the same exact time, same day, registered them. So again, we like to suffer as artists, creating two organizations on the same day. And what began to happen, of course, is that it got challenging to do both at the same time. So Morphos got put to bed, as did the nonprofit for a little while. And really, I think when starting All Ethos, I want to go through that process, and we'll focus on that, is as an artist, there's a lot of challenges, right? Number one, I think that a lot of artists get is that when someone finds out you're an artist, they immediately think that you shouldn't get paid. There's this whole oh, you can do the art show for recognition, right? Or you can do the talk for recognition, right? And so we're constantly having to fight people to tell them our worth. And that's a really big challenge. The competition is stiff, of course, when you're going for grants and other things like that. I'm jurying a competition right now, and there's 5 different awards, varying different, from like $5,000 to $50,000, and there's over 300 applicants, right? So it gets really competitive. And when we moved into Alt Ethos, there was a group of us going to that. I really looked at what does it look like to run a business, artist versus designer. So when I started Alt Ethos, we did not mention the word art at all. We talked about design, and we were designers. And you know what? People would pay designers. So that really helped us have a really nice place for our company. So I started it with 5 people total. You can see us there in the bottom left. And we, it took grit to get it going, and definitely was a lot of challenges there as well. But there was a lot of drive. We'd have to work side jobs and then get it going. But once we got it going, we were in the midst of some of the coolest stuff ever. And you can imagine 2019 was sort of everyone's crescendo. And we were just at the coolest parties. We were working with really great towns and cities, and working with really great organizations, and started doing brand work and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a really big heyday for us. So we've done many things over the years, and we really wanted to create a company that didn't just do one thing like projection mapping. And part of it is just because I get bored really easily. But also, a lot of the skill set they use for projection mapping is also used in VR. It's also used in AR. It's also used in LED design and installation. And what we found is we could hire other artists, or we could hire designers, or we could hire other companies to be able to fill in some of the gaps. And so that really expanded what kind of things we could do. And we really started learning how to set boundaries of what we're going to do and we're going to do in-house. Right? So let's see. So we really set up like experiences beyond expectation. The whole point of Alt Ethos was create unexpected joy and get people to talk to each other, just by happenstance, which didn't really seem to be happening that much even before COVID. And now, of course, it's a little worse. But people to be able to just engage and be like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Oh, did it just move? Like, did I make it move? And to have that conversation with someone who's next to you, and it starts building community, which I think is so important in general, sort of the appropriate use of technology, if you will. But today we're going to focus on projection mapping because I was approached on one specific project. And just to show you, we've done all different kinds of projection mapping from interactive dance floors. Let's see, here we go. Interactive dance floors at big parties, like where there's bands playing and all kinds of stuff like that. We've done live projection mapping. So here's one where the artists would paint during the day and at night we'd come in and we'd map it. And they were doing sort of freehand style. They didn't really have like a grid or a 3D, anything they could give us. So we were really mapping on the fly. And this was a really great festival, mural festival in Denver. And so we started getting pretty well known around town again. We did some really great museum work. Really great museum work where we brought in, oh, this is our whole projection, sorry. Okay, so we started doing like live events, museum work, brand work. Here's the museum stuff. So interactive where it plays music as you go over different visual cues. And so we started getting called for a lot of things because especially in Denver at that time, there weren't a lot of people doing projection mapping. Here's a nice one that already started on its own down the bottom. This is for the botanical garden. They had this really amazing pyramid. And the fun thing about projection mapping on exteriors is you never know what the material is going to do. And we weren't sure that this material on this pyramid was going to pop the color at all. And it was like magic. This is actually one of my favorite buildings that we've ever mapped because it just, the colors just got like reflected so well and it really, really popped. For the sake of today, we're going to focus on a luminous interactive projection mapped mural that we did in Fort Collins. So as a company, this was one of our first big projects. And if I recall correctly, we got this project because the person who was doing the majority of our sales had done some cold calling and was just calling around, seeing if we can get some work, right? Lots of sales, by the way, always. But we happened to get in on this project where Fort Collins was redoing their alleyways. And actually Fort Collins to date is famous for redoing their alleyways into really great spaces. So they were redoing an alleyway. They had this place that was dark, and so people didn't feel safe walking through it. They were just installing a parking garage, and they really wanted people to feel safe going from the parking garage to the restaurants and stores and all that. So they called on us, and let me show you it. Oops, my apologies. Let's get back in there. All right, so we'll go over this in more detail and I'll talk about this. But this was really exciting, to have our company that was still growing and developing to start getting paid projects and start getting these big projects, right? Whereas as an individual artist, there's only so much you can do. And my goal was really to create something that was bigger than myself and to really do these bigger projects. So this was 2017 when we cold called. And here's sort of some of the steps that we went through. We worked with the city and we identified different artists for the mural. And we gave them, I think, 5 different options at the time. And then they got to pick who the artist was, which I think is really important to get people to feel like they're part of the process because they know their city better than we know their city. So getting them part of the process is really a key development for that collaborative piece. Technology development. So this was an interactive, permanent projection mapping, which at the time I had never seen before. Not even a permanent projection mapping, out exterior. So there was a lot of things that we had to figure out. And not only did we figure out like the box so that, because in Fort Collins, it gets like negative 15 degrees in the winter with snow, and it gets 90 degrees in the summer, sometimes 100. And so we had to have the right box for the projector that could handle all that. We had to have the right box for the computer. And we had to be able to figure out how all these things were going to connect with each other. So this was a really exciting project. There was tons of testing and retesting, as you can imagine. And then, of course, when you get on site and you're installing it, it's all a little bit different. So you test again and you test again and you test again. The artist they ended up going with is Pita. He's from Italy. And so we flew him in from Italy. And he spent, I think it was a week and a half to paint. And then we went ahead and did our installation. And of course, we also had the other piece, which was the digital artwork. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then, of course, after we installed, there wasn't only testing and retesting and making sure the hardware and the software worked and everything was going to be the timers that when they went off, so it turned on a certain time at night and went off a certain time at night every day automatically. We had to make sure all that worked. But then we had to take the content and we had been testing it in our studio, but to put it on the big screen, as you say, we had some adjustments, right? So this, I just want to show you. So this, the complexities of it and all the different things, we had tons of files. We had an Asana account where we were doing mapping everything and following everything. But we really had to follow all these different things and organize the heck out of how we did things so that everyone could communicate on the same page. Here's just a great picture of PETA. And the city paid for the lift, so that helped with the expenses. But we negotiated, about who was paying for what. And then, of course, there was that water drain that we didn't know really until we got there. And then we had to negotiate with PETA. He decided not to paint it, so that worked. But you can see here that this really was a space that was in transition. There wasn't a lot happening there at the time. So here's just some ideas of like what was going on visually. The first artist that we had was part of our team. And there were some changes going on in our team as well. He was leaving at that time. And so he was getting his artwork done. He's this top right side here. He was getting his artwork done. And once I put it on the mural itself, I was like, this isn't going to work. It wasn't dynamic enough for me. I'm really a stickler about it. So we had the second artist come in and we did these textures. And so we did textures that were part of the history of Fort Collins. And we used the 3D model that the artist provided for us, which was really helpful. So we started creating more textures and more dynamic depth to the sculpture. Then we had another artist come in and we had them merge the two. And so that at that point, I was happy and it turned out really well. We had another thing, which was, you see up here in the upper left-hand corner, the interactivity to start with wasn't that exciting. It was almost like it was discouraging you from participating. So it was dark, and when you moved, it moved this dark blob, and it just wasn't happening. So we switched that to make these orbs that had different textures inside of them, and they'd move with you. And if you had two people that moved together in the middle, it create a third texture. And so it really created this dynamic, rewarding, interactive piece that people still love today. So some of the positive things about this project, exposure, we talked about this. So really we did this at cost for us. So exposure, client confidence, building that client confidence and being able to get more clients. Portfolio building, because at the time we were really using our individual works to get clients. So this gave us a team project. Team and process building. So there's a lot of process that we had to figure out doing larger projects and getting multiple people and even people outside of our team to be able to communicate. We got awards, as did the city, for this project. And we also got a recognition from the city. So that was really nice. And then it's a timeless work. Like, this is still going today. And so this is one of those things that every day it turns on and then it turns off. And if we need to tweak something, maybe we tweak something, and very little changes. Now, I say that on a daily basis, right? But I'll say that some of the challenges that we had was the at cost. So we had to do this at a discounted cost, right? So really we were doing it for minimal labor, mostly third-party labor costs, and the cost of the equipment. And then our labor was pretty much donated, right? The maintenance. So although we set it up so that there's very little maintenance, there's that 4 to 6 year mark where permanent installations that have technology, and even if they don't have technology and you painted something, right, it all needs maintenance. So at the time that the maintenance was happening, the computer needed to be replaced, and they wanted to change how it was. So our computer was up on the pole with the projector, and they wanted the computer to be on the ground about 75 feet over there. And so we had to redo the entire design of the software to be able to put the computer 75 feet over there on the ground. So we kind of redeveloped the entire thing on, again, a bare bones budget, because they were an older client. They didn't have a lot of funds for this, so we did on bare bones budget. And so that was some of the challenges of that. And it took a little longer, of course, than we had expected it to because of the challenges we ran into. But again, it still runs today, and it still is a place that is really, there we go, we have the city impact. So here's just, we got recognized by the city, and so that was really nice to have that. And then, so the city impacts, and here's really where you have to look at when you're reselling these things and getting cities to buy in and different companies to buy in, to do a case study. So look at, we got smarter, of course, as things went along, but foot traffic increase. So how much did it increase from before we installed to after we installed? We didn't get that before information, but we knew by looking at it and talking to city officials that definitely there was a lot of increase. There was business increase. So there was more businesses in that area, and the businesses saw a huge increase in just how many people were going through that area and spending money. Increased hip population. So there was more people who just like come to Fort Collins, and they'd happen upon this alleyway, because that's where the garage was. And I'd be sitting there. I like to sit out there and just, you know, there was a brewery across that came across the way, and I'd sit there, be drinking a beer and just talk to people. And this one guy, I won't forget it, he was like, it's like, oh man, I wish I knew this was here before. I'm moving from like I don't know, he was moving from like Washington to somewhere on the East Coast. And he was like, if I would have known that this was here, I would have moved here instead of where I'm going. So we are getting that kind of reaction, just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Fort Collins was so cool, which is just amazing, right? For this little town, about 200,000 people, to be this hub of coolness and forward thinking. Outdoor activities, so there was an increase of patios. There's two more patios added right there. There was a like a high-end hotel that was added on the other end of the block, and they were actually having people request rooms with a view of the mural because they could see it at night. How cool was that? So people would request a room with a view. There was articles in the newspaper. There was a controversial article where people thought it made people who were doing drugs hang out, which wasn't true, but someone was up in arms. So it created this kind of fun rift between the arts community and whoever that person was. Um, but exposure and awards, design awards. So it really was not only good for us and for us to take that hit of doing something that was a little bit cheaper than we ideally wanted. It's still one of our best projects, honestly. And it was really good for the city. It was also good for the architecture company that was doing the remodel of that entire area. And good for the hotel, good for the businesses, all that good stuff. So here's a little bit. So you can see where they overlap. There's a third texture. Okay. So now I want to go into some more projects that we've done. At this point, we've done, I would say, over 100 projects over the years. So there's a lot of different things, again, that we've done. Here's sort of a mix. This is our reel. So there's a lot of different things there. One of the things you probably saw, and we'll look at this in a second, is that during COVID, uh, we immediately pivoted into doing metaverse design. And I'll talk about that more in a minute, but you saw some of that in there, which we hadn't even considered before that. Here's another project that we did that still is one of our most popular projects, one of our first as well. And one thing I want to point out to this is that it's really important to have good partners. This was with the Anythink Libraries. We were partners with them for over 8 years. And they were so good at getting the media to come and do news stories and stories about what was going on. So having those good partners is really great because it helps elevate you, it elevates them. Let's take a look at this. So that was a really great project. At night, LEDs come on and the LEDs interact with the music and stuff. So it's a really fun project. This was also one of those that we had to do at the 4 to 6 year mark. We had to do some rebuilding just to reinforce some of the software, upgrade it, and do some painting on the tree because it faded a little bit. But through the test of time, this is another one that turns on every day. And people love it. When it's off, they, for whatever reason, they immediately go to the front desk and say, I want to play the tree. Like, why is it off? So really a great community project. Through the years, we've won some awards as well. This is just some of our team winning an award. Really excited. So here's some other projects. So one thing, even though we've worked with brands and we've done that, one of the favorite things that we've always enjoyed is doing projects that are out in the community for the sake of just entertaining the community. So this is one that just, there's a lot of long lines for theater, for the theater district, and they wanted something for people to do while they're waiting in line for the theater. So this was a little something for them to do, an interactive sculpture. We've done, this is also a musical sculpture here where people will push into it and then play different sounds according to how you're pushing into it and how many people were pressing on it. This is actually a kinetic sculpture. So light was influencing this, and it was a metal. So we worked with a metal fabricator on that one. There's the tree. We saw this one a little bit too. This one creates music, different sounds. And this one was another one that was in Really, which was a musical hopscotch. So as you moved over the different objects, it created different sounds for different instruments. And so you could play with other people as you move through the objects. So just really are these kind of projects that are great for team building, great for community building, and really gets people excited. My apologies. Okay, so COVID hit, right? We all remember this. And unlike most people in that we knew who were just saying like in our industry, who were just like, yeah, it's just going to be a month or two. We're just going to take some time off. I didn't have that same sense. I had the sense of like, this is it, this is happening. And so we immediately, like within a month, we had up and running that we were selling metaverse designs. And people just, they needed something, right? So we actually were getting tons of calls and we were doing all these great projects. And we continue to do that today. But here's one of the exciting projects that we did. We've worked with many different metaverse platforms. Of course, a lot more have developed over the years. And here's one of our favorite ones that's high-res metaverse. And this was for a blockbuster film that came out of India called Vikram. Let me show you. So there were a couple of things that this did for us. Number one, I never thought I was going to like the metaverse so much, but it's a lot of fun. And it really is a community interaction and a way for people to come together all over the world, which I love. And COVID gave us the opportunity to start working with clients internationally and collaborators internationally. So that was a really big plus for us. And we got to put metaverses into our arsenal. We actually have a patent pending right now on some technology that meshes the metaverse and the real world so you can interact. So lots of exciting things came out of that for us. Here's our team at that time. And so we work with a lot of different people. And like I said, sometimes we bring in different people for different skill sets and we collaborate with different people. And right now, some of our collaborations are in India. We have a partnership with a company over there and doing different things. So I wanted to take a break right here in case there's someone, Parker, who just wanted to ask questions about that piece, because I'm going to go into some other things in terms of like where we're at now with the world right now. So I'm just wondering if we had any questions.
Do we have any questions from the attendees? If you want, you can either raise your hand icon or you can type it in the Q&A and we can address it right now. Otherwise, I have a quick question actually, if that's okay. Um, the musical hopscotch, that
Yeah.
is very interesting. Now, is that so there's interactive elements underneath the paint, or how does that work? That's
Yes. So that was one of the things. So it was a brick floor, as you saw, and those bricks have been there forever and ever, and we weren't going to mess with those. So we had to come up with a really unique way, like how do we do that? So we ended up placing 3 sensors on the ceiling and then mapping it so that and we had to sort of like morph the map a little bit, right? So if you're and overlap the sensor data so that we knew where people were standing regardless of if you were covering up another another circle or whatever. So that it mapped exactly like who was standing on what. So all of this was done from above. But it was a lot of fun, and just to see people like kids especially like go in there and then like get they there was this one kid, it was maybe like 7, and he just like orchestrated like 10 people to play this game with him so they could all play music together. So really great to watch.
Yeah, I think that's a great project. I'd love to see that here in Vegas. We do have a lot of foot traffic, on the strip or in our arts district alone. We have quite a few people always walking around, visiting the shops, just kind of like the alleyway in Fort Collins. We have a district like that as well. So I think that project would be perfect for a place like that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the great things too is especially in somewhere we have so much visual stimulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have something that's auditory and catch them off guard that they're like, wait, am I playing music?
Yeah.
What's happening? Right?
I love that. That's so fun. It looks like we have a question from Raj. Hopefully I said that correctly. Given the current advances with AI, what options exist for your previous projects if you were to recreate it? If you were to reimagine the process of coming up with your past projects in terms of technology used, programs used, interactive elements, automation elements, is it really easier now to execute those?
That's a good question. Probably it's easier now, especially when it comes to the coding and figuring out the complex, like with the Fort Collins Luminous project, because there was so many complex elements in there that we had to be able to figure out, and it was trial and error. I think that would be a lot faster now to be able to use AI for that, especially where AI is today. The other thing that I find with AI, and I didn't put any of these in there, I was going to, but the presentation process to pitch is so much easier because we can just grab some AI images, right? We can tell AI make this image and whatever elements and projection and mapping over here and a touch screen over here and all that. And so that part has gotten so much easier, and marketing has gotten a lot easier. I used to have a team of maybe 4 people that were doing marketing for different things. But if I had to do a talk and write a speech, or I was doing a webinar or something like that, I would have 2 writers. I'd have like 1 graphics person and all this. And this is the downside too, is that I no longer hire those people. But as an independent business owner, it makes it easier for me to be able to do that stuff quicker and just solo, really. In terms of the visuals and stuff, we really like to still work with the visual artists, right? And make sure we're working with the artists and hiring the artists to do visuals and a lot of the programming. But we do enhance that process using AI, but it's not going to replace the creatives,
Thank you, Ethan. And I think that's a big worry for our art community is AI replacing our artists, right? It's a real it's a real problem.
Well, and the huge thing is, since I went to such a nerdy school, I was around a lot of engineers. And this one class I took really opened my eyes. We were reading white papers. So a white paper is technology before it's hardened, right? So it's when people are still like discovering the technology and they're writing a paper about it, but it's not perfect, right? And so very academic. And these engineers, I was the only artist in the class of like 30 people. And the engineers all thought they could do art. And this is pre-AI, so you can imagine what they think now, right? Like, oh yeah,
Right.
look at me, I'm so talented. But we know, you look at an engineer's art and you look at an artist's art, and they're very different. Just like you look at an artist coding versus an engineer's coding, it's very different. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for that answer. It looks like we have another question from Belle. When your team was cold calling potential clients, how did you decide who to reach out to, and were you targeting a specific industry or type of business?
Yeah, that's an ongoing question, really, because it's always a moving target, especially the last 5 years. But when we got started, that was one of the hardest things for us, not only for everyone on our team to cold call, because it's just nerve wracking, but to figure out like who did we exactly want to work with, and did we want to limit ourselves? And if we went just one direction, was that going to be the right direction? And I'm the type of person that likes to sort of throw my arrows out and see what comes back. So we went relatively broad, but we really focus on, it depends on what's going on in the industries, and COVID put us in a loop and all that. So we had to really look at different things, but you have to look at who's going to be your best buyer, who has the money to spend, um, who's going to be an early adopter. So especially back then, we would have to explain a lot of what we were doing because people didn't really know what it was. So we had to really look for early adopters. With a lot of the cutting edge stuff we still do, we still look for early adopters. Um, it's easier to have a partnership than it is to have a one-of client. So a partnership, like with Anything Libraries, we did 5 projects with them over the years. And so we didn't have to resell to them every time. They knew us. They'd call us and be like, "We have money in our budget." Be like, "Great, what can we do?" So we'd work that way. Um, Instead of like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to sell to people, because you make maybe 1,000 phone calls before you get one sale, right? So that's always, but think about it this way when you're thinking about sales. So really, it's a moving target, but you want to work with people who can be your friends. So who do you get along with? What type of people, right? That's a good one to go with. You have to think about it this way: is Eminem still spends millions of dollars to advertise?
Now, we all know what M&Ms is. We all know exactly what they taste like. They've been proven to be good, but because people forget and there's other options and they get distracted, you have to advertise, 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 advertise. So that's something important to know, is that it never ends, even if you're M&Ms, right?
That's such a great quote, Ethan. I might have to use that sometime.
Nice.
Well, thank you for that answer, Belle. I hope that answered your question. Awesome. We don't have any further question at the moment. Did you want to go ahead and continue with your presentation?
Yeah, so I want to let you all know that this I added when I was really thinking like what could be really impactful for artists right now and the organizations as well as the city to do your planning and figure out, because we're in such interesting times, aren't we? So we're always reinventing ourselves. And here's my panic picture, AI generated. But here's my panic picture, and this is my Facebook cover right now. I didn't mention this before, but I am transgender. So when this administration came in and they wrote that executive order targeting transgender people, I was really worried, and I still am. And so this is me being like, we have a target right here. We have a target. And so it changes the way that I look at things and changes the way that I interact and engage and how I navigate the world. And I don't like a bully. Never have. Never have liked the bully, and I've never been good at keeping my mouth shut. So I wrote 2 books since January 20th. And they're both called the Freedom Manual. There's a 3rd book coming out. It's a series. The first one is Civil Preparedness, and you can get this, they're free. You can get them at thefreedommanual.org. And the first one is Civil Preparedness in the Digital Age. So it really tells you like how to encrypt your works, how to use different software like Signal instead of your SMG to be able to communicate and no one's going to hack it. And it also helps you get your paperwork in order for times like these to make sure that you're safe. And it walks you through that process. So I wrote this with AI. I was able to do it in 10 days. And then I broke down in that manual as well 20 different underrepresented groups, because all those underrepresented groups had other things they had to do. If you were just cisgender, straight, white male, you didn't have those things to do, right? So you could just do the first part. So it really is a great manual. Please share it. I made both of these Creative Commons, which means people can just share it. You can hack it. You can change it. You can modify it. You can shorten it. You can lengthen it. Make it a movie, whatever you want. I don't care. Just get it out there. The second one's a little bit more bold. It's Resistance Guide. So I'll just leave that there as a resistance guide. But it also does break down. I wanted to think about there's a lot of different people who can do different things. There's people like my mother who wants to write to her congressperson. And then there's people who will be more emboldened. And so I made 9 different layers of activists, and each layer has like certain things you can do so that you don't have to feel like you have to do it all. We're going to work as a team. So it really brings people together as a team during this time. So I encourage both of those to go out far and wide. So I put this together really quickly, but I'm going to do my best here to make sense. So really what we want to focus on is resilience, relevance, and risk. And so as artists, as organizations, and as cities who are supporting art, that all looks a little bit different right now. So it's a historical disruption, right? We don't have to really, it's economical, it's political, cultural, the DEI stuff, all that, it's all rapidly shifting hour by hour. Like how many people are stressed out just by the hour by hour thing. So there's also, just want to put back there to the guides, there's also things like shut your phone off every day at a certain time and use an alarm clock, right? I do that, it helps my stress tremendously. So we put some stress tips in there as well. I also have TikTok and Substack under the Freedom Manual, so you can follow me there. So artists and cultural organizations, I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations. Like I said, I'm also doing consulting. So about like, what do we do? How do we figure this out? How are we going to figure out our funding? And laws are shifting, and there's a lot of different things, and we're going to see more of that. And this isn't just turbulence, right? It's a restructuring. So how do we respond, and how do we stay safe, right? Especially as people, or you're a person of color, transgender, GLBTQ, immigrant, all those great things, woman. Okay, sorry, this is wordy, but we're gonna walk through it. So the policy front, what artists should know. So recent proposals at the federal level are targeting arts funding. So this is something to know. A lot of people are wondering how they're going to fund. During times of disruption in general, we see arts funding go down and people buy less art. They buy less experiential art. So people will put more money into hardened art like sculpture and paintings during this time than they will in experiential art. So just so you know that. So of course there's like diversity, education, community support systems are all being affected. Oh, and tourism, I put that in there, Las Vegas, right? You guys know that tourism's going down. Tourism is a big industry for us. So we're seeing that going down, especially in events, right? Like nobody wants to fly right now. And especially people don't want to come to this country. New policies and blueprints that prioritize control over expression. So there's cultural and educational programs that are being redefined or defunded under broader efficiency and reform language. And we'll talk about some solutions in a minute. So this includes the restrictions on school contents, reduction in access to public grants, and redirection of federal funding to private institutions or religious affiliated programs. So it really is a lot of interesting things in this moment that we're living in. But if you are expression heavy and like to do things that are based on social structures and society, there's a lot of content right now for art design and creation. So things you should watch for, and this is just things to look out for and pay attention to. Changes to visa processing for international artists. I have seen some artists have to cancel their tours in the United States, specifically if they're GLBTQ and other people who might not be safe. Increased content regulations in schools and museums. So there is pressure, huge pressure right now in schools and museums to confine to restricting what kind of expressions there can be out there. So just know that one thing I would say, in case we don't touch on it in a second, is just look outside of the US. As an artist in general, I would say that, you know, if you're not hitting your hotspot in the US, there are 8 billion people on the planet. Your hotspot might be in India. They might love your work and you might get a lot of gigs in India in general, right? So always look outside of the US, but specifically now it's a good idea. Pressure to avoid controversial themes in public art. So we're going to see more of that. And take it for what you need to, you know. Rise of performative patriotism and funding decisions. So we are going to see that. If you like to paint American flags and very patriotic things, you're probably going to do great. You're going to do great during this time. Economic policies that destabilize small organizations and freelancers. So, right, tariffs. So tariffs is a big one for us. We get a lot of stuff from China. And so it does affect. And so you might see that too if you need to, you know, get certain things for your art practice that you might have to pay a little bit more. So what we're seeing as well, civic infrastructures, the ecosystems that artists live and work in are changing. For instance, I know people that are moving from Florida to Colorado because Colorado is a safe state. And so a lot of people are just moving to be in safer places. So that's something that maybe artists might have to start considering at some point as well, no matter what your race, gender, identity, any of that. Who gets access to space? Who controls the narrative? And who sets the terms of public engagement? So again, if you're like, I'm heavily part of the resistance right now with the books and the things I'm doing on social media. So I've actually been doing a lot of AI generated art that leans towards that. And so learning a lot of new ways to do that. And I've never written a book before. So learning a lot of new skills. So the power of culture is huge, and that's one thing that's being affected, but the cultural shifts, perception faster than policy. So people are scared, we know that. And when people are scared, they're less likely to be risk taking. So it might be something to just consider, like maybe you do your riskier sort of art expression into that you put out there to other countries. Just know that the whole world is sort of going through some shifts right now. So maybe just tone it back and make a folder for your more risque stuff for later. Artists have always served as emotional historians, as strategic disruptors. So we are, and always have been, the ones who will still speak out when no one else is willing to. And sometimes this can be very coded. And anyone who's studied fine arts and knows sort of the conversation that goes on in fine arts that nobody knows, it's like the painting, the black painting. And anyone who doesn't never studied painting or arts in general would just be like, I didn't do that. What is that? Why is that in the gallery, right? But we know it's part of a conversation. So we can kind of sneak things in as part of the art conversation that people may not know immediately, but that it's still saying something. What we choose to make now will shape how people understand this moment 5 years from now. People are always moved by art. That's probably one of the reasons why we all do it. I mean, I know that's why I do it. It's my language. It's how I communicate. So if I have something to say or I see that something needs to be said, this is how I do it. So we are the ones, right, who will say things that other people won't, or maybe they can't say. 3 things that every artist can do right now. So download the books, by the way. Number 1, download the books, keep them, share them. Organize locally. So really we do better as community. Always, 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 always do better as community. So community networks are more resilient than institutions. Start getting your art community together to just talk about things. Maybe you all hang out and paint or do whatever you're doing while you're hanging out. Just get people together. You can do this virtually as well. But it's so important to have community. Use coded metaphors. So maybe we have to start speaking a little bit more coded. Look at other movements throughout history. There's a lot of different things. In looking at these different artists that have submitted for this grant that I'm on the board of, or I'm not on the board, I'm just a jury. But I start thinking about this, I look at people who are doing weaving, and I think about when the Underground Railroad and the blacks were in slavery in the United States, and they started doing knots that were symbolizing different communication. So maybe even got like a package or someone delivered a package, or you saw on someone's window or something a certain knot, and it meant something. And I just think that's so amazing, and there's so much depth that we can grab from these moments to really look at how can we express ourselves in more coded ways if we have to. Create durable work. We talked about this a little bit before, but like think about work that is hardened a little bit during these times. Not only are people going to be more willing to purchase them, but you want to make sure that you have things that can outlast time. We may not have TikTok. We know this already, right? So, or Instagram might be more heavily monitored as we see it happening right now. So think about different ways that you'll be able to express yourself. Maybe it's on the side of a building, maybe it's a painting, maybe it's a sculpture. Different ways that we may have access to now, but we may not sooner rather than later. And I totally have time for us to talk more about these things, but I want to keep going. Organizations. So what organizations can do, so be a hub, not a silo. Again, like one of the first things I do in these sort of situations is I call everyone I know. And I just say, how can we work together? What are you doing? What are you thinking? Are you on my team? And how can we work together, and how can we start stabilizing things and just make things better for all of us? And so really combining resources is going to save everybody. We can no longer be in that for organizations, can no longer be in that like, well, that grant, we're all fighting for that same grant. So I'm going to stab you in the back, or I'm going to see you at this event and I'm not really going to talk to you, or it's just not the time for that. We all have to be on the same team, and we all have to pool our resources. So preparing for the funding in instability with mutual aid or shared resource plans. So again, I think that's something, I think with organizations really reaffirming the importance of your role, and the art's role is going to be important to do sort of more education with people. Archive everything. That's a big one, archiving. So make sure you're archiving it. There are some archiving organizations. I don't remember the name of them off the top of my head, but I know there's one specifically for video art, but there's also people out there that are just like archiving information on the web. And so look at that. There is, in the first book, there's a lot of information about digital archives and securing those. So that's a really great way, because right now they're using AI to erase history and people, right? So we want to be careful and just make sure that we're archiving things. Train your teams in digital safety. Again, I'm doing consulting in that. And measure framing for changing social climates. Digital safety is huge, huge, huge. And it's going to be more huge in the next month and from there on. About they just did a thing in March 27th. And I remember this date because I was working on my book in AI, and my book has a lot of controversial language in the resistance guide. And I had several chat windows open, and I opened a new window in chat, and chat said, "Are you using a VPN?" Which solidifies an IP address wherever I want it to be and not necessarily where I am. And it says, "Are you using a VPN? You might want to turn that off." And I was like, oh, wait a minute. You never asked me that before. So I went back to chat and I said, "Hey, chat, you just asked me a strange question. What's that about?" And chat said, "Oh, 3 days ago, we started monitoring words that people were using. And so did Google, Alexa, Amazon, like all these different companies started monitoring words you use. So Google, Gmail, all that. If you use certain words, freedom, resistance, planning, authoritarianism, those kind of words too, you may end up on an FBI watch list. So I'm not really worried about it personally in terms of watch lists and stuff like that. I've been an activist for a long time. I think I was probably on one back in the 90s. But just know, things are changing all the time. And we may not know, like, I didn't know that had happened until I noticed a glitch in chat. They didn't tell me, and they didn't make it public, right? So I noticed another glitch in chat, and so then I asked it another question. So I can tell chat is changing. And that's one reason why I wrote the book so fast, is because I didn't want to lose access to what chat will tell me right now. Okay, not trying to scare you, but this is what's happening. So what city public arts programs can do right now. Diversity funding, so protect against politically volatility by increasing local, private, and community-driven fundraising sources. Reframe without retreating, so use neutral language, community wellness. So still do the same programming, but just use different language. Again, they're using AI, so you can work around that, right? You could actually use AI to ask them what words you should use around AI. Protect artists is gonna be so important. So maybe artists aren't getting together. So maybe you create that space for them to start getting together and really help them feel safe. And like maybe you offer someone like, hey, someone can do digital safety training, talk about creative rights contracts, and emotional support is going to be huge. Archive, again, archive, public art, digital art, physical art, archive it so that we have our history. Elevate artists as strategists. So artists are so great in how we use our mind, right? That's one thing that makes us really unique. So we see things that maybe you don't. If you're left-brained, we're right-brained, and we'll come in there and we can help with civil planning, resistance efforts, messaging that helps communities adapt, connect, and imagine. And artists are always sort of surviving anyways. So we may have a lot of skills that you may want to hire an artist for to help with your community. Maybe it's not painting, but maybe it's how to cook on a budget. Different things like that. So just, we have to start thinking a little bit differently. But one of the things, especially post-COVID, that we have to come back to is community. Now I'm going to leave one little story here and I'll move on to the next slide. But like, it reminds me of, I used to live in Olympia, Washington, and I lived there for 6 years. If you know one thing about Olympia, Washington, it's the rainiest part of Washington. Washington's pretty rainy. Rainy, 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 rainy. One thing that's really great about that, and I miss from being in Washington, I moved away in '99, never looked back, but is that we had such great community because people would get together and have so many potlucks. We were always sitting and having coffee. Like we're always meeting and having coffee. We're always having potlucks. And it was just such a rich community because of that, and because it was so dark and dreary all the time. But it was amazing. It was amazing. So just, we have to rethink those things. So this is the time for artistic intelligence. Again, like we look at things much differently. And yeah, so not just necessarily saving art as a specific art piece, but it's about saving expression, space, and connections. So there may be ways that we're going to do this that are just different. And that we're not just reacting to the moment, that we are documenting it, shaping it, and we're preparing others to survive it. So that's kind of where I've leaned into, is that preparing others to survive it. And again, I was one of the early people to like be whistleblowing kind of on what was happening. And people were just kind of looking at me like, what are you talking about? And now everyone gets it, right? So we kind of have to be those ones who are still communicating and helping people think about it. We had this client one time, she was the DDA, Downtown Development Authority head for Denver. And I could tell her, imagine that wall behind me is pink. And she's like, I can't see it. So I can't see it. So we have to remember that there's people around us who can't imagine things unless it's tangible. So that's our job, is to help them see those things. So I want to say before we go into Q&A, and we have about 15 minutes, it's just, this is such a unique moment. We never thought we'd be seeing this in the United States. Some people did earlier, but it's definitely changed my whole world since January. Just writing the books and looking at things differently and knowing my own protections that I have to have. I've implemented a lot of things that are in the books. And that we really are artists and those people who are thinking outside of the box. We really are the people who are going to be helping others to have this moment be more rich, have us feel more secure, have us find joy and entertainment in these times, and to build community. So we are so important during this time. I open up to questions and I will answer anything that has to do with any of this, honestly.
That was really great information, Ethan. And I will make sure to pass those books along. I think a lot of our art community members will definitely get a lot of beneficial information from it. It's very important right now to be there for each other, especially as artists.
Huge. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, let's jump into questions real quick, and then we'll nitpick some of those things. I have questions for you as well myself. But let's start with our attendees. Um, Vision asked, I believe this was about earlier with your cold calls. When you approach people with a pitch, do they end up paying for unused proposals?
Oh, so that's a good question. So we started doing something that we called it the design phase. Um, and it's changed now, I'll tell you that. Like post COVID, it changed. But before COVID, we were able to charge people for a design phase. So if we talk to them, we show them our work and different concepts, and we say, if you pay us, for us, it was anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000. I think we started with 3,000 when we started. If you pay us this much, we'll put together a proposal for you, and we'll give you 3 options, and then we'll meet with you and we can talk about each option and which one works best for you. And then we'll move forward and we'll give you details of the technology and the costs and all that stuff. And then we'll move forward from there with how much the installation is going to cost. So we were able to work that in. It was really great. As far as I know right now, in terms of corporate pitching, that no longer works. That you have to actually go to, because it's a different competition right now. You have to actually go to a corporation with a proposal that you've already figured out the solutions for them. So it's a little different. But I really like the design phase, and people, even you could say, $1,500, $500, whatever, so that you're at least feeling like you have some value in all that work that you're doing.
That's a great answer. And here at Clark County Public Arts, we definitely want to pay our artists, no matter what they're doing. Every single type of work that they do for us, even if it's just for a design proposal, we want to make sure that they're getting paid for that work that they did on that. So that's very important, I think, as an artist, as a working artist, to have some sort of design fee to cover that work, that labor, right?
Yeah.
Vision, did that answer your question, or did you have something further than that?
You guys did answer my question. I hope it's not too noisy where I am right now.
No, not at all.
If he still has time, um, I guess touching on the funding and how the funding is, a lot of funding is being cut off right now, and then how that might tie into pitching and nonprofits, because there was mention of nonprofits and maybe creating projects where none exist. Possibly there could be some expansion of that as a topic.
So what I hear you saying is that thinking outside of the box and not necessarily waiting for an RFP or a call for work, but hitting them with a different approach. Is that correct?
Correct. And also maybe just the way artists have to write grants or create projects or project grants, but possibly in conjunction with a nonprofit. Has your team of designers ever had to create a project with a nonprofit, like one that didn't previously exist?
Oh, like a new nonprofit, or we're the nonprofit? Are we creating the nonprofit or someone else creating the nonprofit?
No, I guess it's maybe I'm not saying this correctly. Like, it's more similar to what you previously mentioned, like as opposed to going through an RFQ and as opposed to applying for some type of an opportunity as an individual, or even as an artist team, going through a nonprofit to, I don't know, make a mural or make one of your video installations or one of your projects or whatever that is.
Absolutely. Okay, gotcha. I'm clear now. Um, so I'm actually, while you're talking too, I'm typing it into AI because AI has both my books in there and all my conversations. So I want to see what it says too, but I'll answer you direct. So I would say always, not just right now, but we hardly ever applied for an RFP because number one, we called ourselves designers, but like number two is that a lot of the RFPs, depending on their process, but a lot of the RFPs already know who they're picking, even though they never admit this to you. They already know the artist they're picking. They're probably already in conversation with them, but they have to go through the process legally. And so this has been a long time issue with people who are just applying for the RFP and not doing anything else. So I would say in general, don't ever just apply for the RFP. Contact someone at the nonprofit or the organization or the city council or whatever, and just like, hey, can I join your city council to see what your process is? And then you just get to know people while they're on break and start talking to people and making those relationships. And it's all about relationships. So we've actually, when we were going out, like our relationship with Anythink Libraries and that first project, the Singing Tree, we cold called them and then they said, oh, we have an RFP. And then we did the RFP process, but they already knew they wanted to work with us. And then actually the RFP wasn't enough for what they wanted. And so they actually increased it by 3 times, I think, the price. So we ended up being able to work with them. And then we just worked straight with them without any RFPs from then on. So I would say in general, but right now, because it's, let me see what chat has to say here too. So partnerships, yeah, I would say that one of the things with, one of the things I was talking about earlier with partnerships is going to nonprofits and saying, do you need to communicate with your community in ways that you that are new? How can I help with that, right? Organizing, of course, organizing where people getting a team together and getting them together, like and working with a nonprofit. And again, you can pitch a nonprofit like, hey, we really want to work with kids. I have these 5 artists that really want to work with kids, but we need X amount of funding. And does this fit anywhere for you? Right? Especially that after school programs have been canned. Are you helping support that? So absolutely, absolutely. Let me see if there's anything else good here. Direct sponsorship, so not just grants, so getting sponsorship. So another thing, yeah, I know people who are doing this avenue, like Meta, I sort of shiver at Meta, but like Meta and other companies, they still give out a certain amount of their money. And so there are ways that you can apply for that. And again, like if you know someone who works at Meta, like that's the best route to go, and they'll give you insider information, even though they're technically probably not supposed to. And you can put a pitch deck together and approach a company and say, hey, I noticed you have this wall outside. I'm a mural artist. Here's what I can do for you. Who should I talk to? Absolutely. Always, always, always. But especially now, the people who are doing that, like you're talking about, you're going to get more work than anybody else.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, with AI, it's easier, right? You can say, AI, put together a proposal for me for this company. What do you think their pain point is, right? So utilize that. Utilize AI for artist good, not artist evil, right?
Well, on that topic, Ethan, um, I've seen quite a few government entities, public art divisions, recently where their requirements, they will put on there a disclaimer saying that they do not accept AI generated design proposals. How do you work around that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. Number one is then you have to do the art. Maybe the AI part of it is just helping you with concepts, and then you do the art generation yourself to for the proposal. The other way to do it is if some AI like chat still you can tell if it's AI driven language. So a couple of things that I do is Claude. I use Claude. So maybe I'll write something in chat and I'll move it to Claude. But I also tell whatever AI I'm working with to make the language geared towards a ninth grade reading level. Because one thing that AI tends to do, because it's built by white, highly educated engineers, is it tends to overuse its 50-cent words. And it uses there's certain phrases too that just are like, you're AI because you use that phrase, right? So you just have to go through and edit. You want to edit always, but you probably have several back and forths in your writing. And there are websites that you can go in and say, um, test to see if something sounds AI that's written. So that's a good way to do it too. But yeah, with the art generation, you can use it for concepting or even just like knowing the angles and stuff like that, different designs, and then you have to generate it yourself.
That's a great answer because like I mentioned earlier to you, I was on an evaluation panel recently, and having to read their proposals, their letter of intents, a lot of them started sounding very, very similar to each other. So you
Yeah.
can kind of tell that it wasn't really from them. It was something that was pulled from AI. So thank you for pointing that out. I would really like to use that as a starting point here to say that if you are going to use things like AI to generate your letter of intents, please make sure that you scramble it around, like Ethan said, edit it to fit your personality, your art style, or whatever the message that you're putting out there. Because
You can
people,
tell.
jurors will see that. They will see that.
And one thing with writing the book, especially, I learned this is that, for the book and with those sort of things, you have a topic, they ask you a question or something, is just get your ability to use a microphone to talk to AI and tell it what you want. Just like riff on it, right? Okay, here's what I want to say, this and this, and my brain goes all over the place. So then AI is really just organizing my thoughts, and that's way better.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a good way to use AI for sources and the wrong way, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, just
That's a
writing a
great
proposal.
observation.
That's the
Yeah,
wrong way. That's the wrong way. Yeah.
definitely. All right, well, let's move on to our next question on our Q&A. This one is from Raj. Do you see more artists doing more art that is oriented towards activism, whether it's political or social? And do you see yourself encompassing elements of art and bringing forward these issues, including the ones you mentioned, like resilience, resistance, etc.?
Um, yes and yes, and but not through alt ethos. So I'm here to you today as Ethan Bach, and I happen to work at alt ethos and have started that company. But not alt ethos will not be doing politically driven work. That's not in our best interest as a company. But me personally, absolutely, and yes, because what we've seen, if you were one of the people who saw what was happening early on, you've also been frustrated like me as like, how are people not getting this, right? And so right now, what I'm doing a lot on social, especially, is personal artworks that help people understand, because I've read Project 2025 and all that stuff, help people understand not only what's happening, but what's going to happen and what our choices are and help motivate them and all that kind of stuff. So I think absolutely we're seeing a lot more of that, memes and humor and different things that are really important in a revolution sort of situation.
Raj, did that answer your question? Awesome. Um, let's see. Do we have any other questions from our attendees at the moment? If you'd like, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can type it in the Q&A. It looks like none at the moment. So maybe this is a good time for me to ask my questions really quick.
Yeah, of course.
Uh, all right. Well, my first one, Morphos. Now, you did mention that it is right now not doing its thing. Are you looking to start that again? Because I think the whole education aspect of that is very important. Is that something that you're looking into starting again?
Um, no, it was a personal passion, and unfortunately, my relationship to domes and the dome community is not as fun as it used to be for me.
Okay,
So
understandable.
yeah, and it was, I mean, it's a ton of work. Um, and I think it is still important. More people are making avenues for that, and a lot of technology is making it easier for people to understand it. And things like the Sphere in Las Vegas have an artist program and stuff now. So people have taken over that.
Yeah, but I think it's such a great idea to still have a lot more resources, especially someone from your position that you've been doing this for so long already. You have all of that information inside you that you can definitely be sharing with people. I think that program is great, and hopefully you start something similar to that down the way.
We'll see. I never know what's going to happen next sometimes.
Very
So
true. Very true. We artists tend to pivot depending on how we're feeling at the moment.
right. Like I had no idea, 2 months ago that I was going to write a book. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible.
yeah.
So my next question is a little more technical. Would you be able to, as your organization, um, map out an existing mural? Let's say we already had a mural there that's been there already. Is that a possibility for your services?
1,000%. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, that's great to know because I mean, we have wonderful murals here in town, um, existing ones. I mean, we would always love new ones, of course, in the future, but having your projection mapping on top of what we already have here might really give it a little bit of a boost, right? And I think that should bring
Yeah.
in
I
a
mean,
lot more
it's
people.
huge what kind of life it brings to a mural. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch all of those projects you shared with us. So also, does Alt Ethos supply an artist when you're doing these projects? Do you have an artist roster that you pull from, or do you usually do some sort of open call for that?
It depends. So sometimes we'll just do research and find like according to what the community needs. But sometimes the community really wants to stay local.
Hmm.
We totally get that. So we'll do a call and work with local artists.
Okay.
Yeah, but it really depends. And sometimes, there's already a mural or, happens to be a festival and someone's painting live. And so we get to work
Yeah,
with them. So it's a lot of different things.
that's really fun. I'd really love to see something like that.
Yeah, the live was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. And I think my last question is, does the artist have to have experience in digital art when you're choosing an artist to work with these projection mappings? Do they have to have digital experience already, or is that something you're willing to work with the artist?
Um, so are you talking about the person who's painting the mural or the person who's making the video that goes on top of it? Content.
The artist that would be painting the mural. Now, let's say you're doing a brand new project and now you have to pull an artist to do the mural part. Um, and you did mention earlier something about the artist giving you a digital rendering, which really helps you to do the projection mapping. Does that, is that the artist need to have that experience as well?
So no, we work with all different types of artists. And
Okay.
again, like we can work if it's already painted. So we can just take an image. Of course, if they have a 3D model, that's like
Mhm.
icing on the cake and we get really excited,
Oh,
but
perfect.
totally not necessary. Yeah. We've worked with lots of different artists. And that's one of the benefits of my background in the doing the artist in residence too, is I was teaching all different types of artists how to put their stuff in a dome, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's really great to be able to work with them if we need to make any alterations or something. But
Hmm.
uh, normally it's just whatever the artist is doing and we can use that and pop it, make it pop.
That's wonderful. That's really great because I know artists would probably be a lot more hesitant if they didn't have that experience to approach a company like yours because they're afraid that they won't be able to fit the requirements. And sometimes that holds artists back. But
Sure.
knowing that you're able to work with all levels of artists is, really great to know.
Yeah, and you know, we're even willing to work with digital artists or even artists that aren't digital. But if a community wanted to cycle different visual art on top of the mural, we
Hmm.
could do a workshop with different artists, selected artists, and teach them how
Okay.
to do that. You know,
Hmm. Oh, that's brilliant.
yeah,
That is so great. It's good to know because we are definitely trying to move towards interactive art, and projection muraling is one of the most perfect things for public art. It's very,
absolutely.
easy to just put. I mean, I know it's not easy probably on your end, but it's such an easy addition to the public art, right?
It's easy in terms of the infrastructure, right?
Right,
Because
right.
all you need is, I mean, it depends, but a pole and the box and you
Right,
know,
yeah.
instead of having to put up an LED screen or whatever the cost of that is, you know, I don't know
Hmm.
what the cost of that is. It's much different. But yeah, it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to worry about changing the facade of a historic building, you know, that kind of thing.
Right, yeah. No, that's great. I have been very, very intrigued with projection mapping recently, and I think it'll be a great addition here in Clark County. Um,
Yeah, yeah. We can also projection map sculptures. So that's
oh yeah, you're right. You did show us a sample of that. That's exciting too. I'm more of a sculptural artist, so seeing things like that, the possibilities is endless. That's great. Okay, so let's see if anybody else has any questions. I am taking up all of the Q&A. If any of our attendees have any other questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or type it into our Q&A, and we can adjust that really quick. We don't have any at the moment, so maybe this is the perfect time for me to sneak in my announcements really quick, and then we'll go back for final questions and final words. Wonderful. Let me go ahead and share my PowerPoint here. All right. Is everyone able to see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so very quickly, full scope announcements. For our upcoming events. For next month for public art education, full scope workshop, we'll have Anamika Hobbs from Artwork Archive. Like Ethan mentioned earlier, archive your artwork, no matter how small you think it is, how big it is, how significant. It's great to archive your work. And next month we have Anamika here with us talking about how to navigate the website of Artwork Archive for your convenience. So definitely don't miss out for that. She'll also be covering Studio to Success, organizing the business side of your art career. So it's a lot of organization and how to put your stuff together so you don't go crazy trying to go through your artwork. All right. And then the next one is our art committee board monthly meeting. This happens every second Tuesday of the month. Our next one is on May 13th at 3:30 p.m. You can either join us through our online account, online website. It will be on WebEx as well, just like this. Or you can come in person over here at our Parks and Recreation Admin building where it will be held. These are really great meetings are for updates and opportunities that are coming up. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet the committee members, the public art staff. It's just very beneficial to show up and listen to what we have for you. And then as far as our solo series, we have Karina Solman, hopefully I said that correctly, Wild Hues, A Journey Through Nature's Palette. It is on view from April 3rd to May 29th. She has a workshop happening May 12th on Monday from 3:30 to 5:30. She will be teaching painting techniques for function and focus. Participants will be painting their own coasters and materials will be provided. And then she also has a reception coming up after that for her solo show on Thursday, May 29th. We will have a live performer, Alina Manenpool there, so it'll be a great time. And this will be at the Pearson Community Center. Our next up is our Youth Temporary Public Art Group exhibition. This round has Rachel Braley, Heidi Collier, David Lampel, and Vision. Vision is in our attendance right now. So congratulations, Vision. This will be on view May 6th to May 31st. There's a reception on May 22nd, and this will be at Winchester Dondera Cultural Center. Currently, Vision's installation is on display at the Whitney Recreation Center, and David's is on display at Hollywood Recreation Center. So check those out. We also have a gallery showing right now. It is called Empowered Women of Clark County. It's a beautiful selection of amazing art featuring a historical exhibit brought to you by the Clark County Museum and Laura Ferguson. So this is on view till May 1st. Don't miss it. This is at the Rotunda Gallery and it was juried by Fawn Douglas. For our art calls, we have our gallery call with the land. The deadline for this is Sunday, May 4th by the end of the day. This will be at the Rotunda Gallery at the Clark County Government Center. And our juror for this gallery call is Kim Garrison Means. We also have another gallery call at the Winchester Dondera Cultural Center called Pink. We have our juror Lolita Devalet. The deadline for this one is Sunday, May 18th by the end of the day. And our third gallery call is for our annual Juneteenth show. This one will have the theme of some red, some not. The deadline is Sunday, May 11th at the end of the day. This will be going up at the Pearson Community Center. And our juror for this one will be Tamika Henry. For public art community engagement projects coming up, we have I believe this is our 5th empowerment art. This project is seeking digital artists to lead a community engagement with the youth of our Walnut Recreation Center, then design a digital artwork for their bathroom stalls to be printed and installed as vinyl. The deadline for this is Thursday, May 29th, but it's subject to change only because we haven't had our jury meeting, which will be tomorrow. But most likely our deadline will be Thursday, May 29th. If it does change, we will definitely put that out there. This will be at the Walnut Recreation Center, and the budget for the artist will be $4,000. Another public art call coming out soon. We are still trying to tie up some loose ends, but the scope for this one is we are looking for 3 professional artists to design and paint multiple utility boxes around Searchlight, Nevada. Usually our ZAP utility box projects are around town here in Las Vegas. This one we are reaching all the way out to Searchlight. We're still looking into when our deadline will be. We're hoping to release this call soon, and maybe the deadline will be by the end of May. But we'll keep you posted. And the budget for each artist will be a little over $3,000 each. And then we have our ongoing calls, a call for public art evaluators. If you're interested in seeing the other side of art projects, it's a great it's a great way to see what goes on the other side of these projects as an evaluator. So we're always looking for people who want to see that. And just to let you know, this is volunteer based. We do not give out stipends for this, but it is a great experience. And our other ongoing call is for a call for qualifications for our musicians list. We're always looking for talented musicians to be included in our musicians list database. We pull musicians from this database to use for our gallery events, for our receptions. We usually like to have live entertainment during our events, and it's a great way to highlight our local musicians, no matter what level they are. Okay, and we have other opportunities that's outside of Clark County. We have City of Las Vegas and their public art department. They have their ongoing call for guest curators and gallery program evaluators. And then they also have currently a call for artists celebrating Life 2025. This is their annual exhibition for artists age 50 and over, excuse me. And it's such a wonderful show. Every year they have a great group of artists, and you would really enjoy it. It's a great it's very massive from my experience going to the Celebrate Life receptions. It's beautiful. And if you're looking for more information about City of Las Vegas, more opportunities, or just get updates on what they have going on, their link is right here. And then our next one is from Henderson. Their public art and galleries right now, I believe they have only one up. I don't think they have any calls open at the moment. But they do have their, let me see here. Yeah, this is the only thing they have up at the moment. But if you want more information about their upcoming opportunities or any future events, here is a link right underneath for your convenience. And then last but not least, we have Nevada Arts Council. Nevada Arts Council takes care of the whole Nevada regarding arts. They have a few grants available right now and opening on May 1st. So definitely check out their website if you are looking to get grants for your projects. And then our resource and our final slide is our one-on-one meetings. We offer one-on-one meetings for any artist, local artists who are looking to discuss public art related issues, or maybe look over and review their CV, letter of intent, or maybe looking to help build those documents. We are here for you. You can always sign up for our monthly newsletter for updated information about calls, projects, and events, or you can email us directly if you have more specific questions. So I think that's all I have as far as my announcements. Let me stop sharing.
Amazing amount of resources. You guys are
Oh,
lucky.
thank you. Yeah, we try to give it all out there. We're trying to help our art community as much as we can.
Great. And this is Iggy, everyone. She
Oh,
wants to say hi.
what a sweetheart.
Yeah,
Well, now the whole Clark County knows who you are.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, we have about 10 minutes. It looks like we have another question in the Q&A. We'll
Great.
address that really quick and then ask if anybody else has any other quick questions. So Belle asks, what software does your team use for projection mapping?
Oh, that depends. And gosh, I'm the wrong person to ask right in this moment because I've been doing so many different things. Hold on, let's see if I can pull it out of the archive in my brain. Oh wait. I know that the core company is derivative. I can tell you. Oh, so Touch Designer is a big one that we use. Um,
Is there a lot? Is there quite a few different programs to choose from?
there are, I mean, it depends on if you're projection mapping, interactive projection mapping. Touch Designer is really great for interactive projection mapping, or if you're doing like live particle rendering or something like that. Touch Designer is really good. There's some newer ones out there that I'm personally not that familiar with. And then there's of course like Mad Mapper and stuff if you're doing live VJ type of things.
Oh, that's very interesting. Belle, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Yeah, but when it comes to, when it comes to the interactive permanent installation stuff, we're putting several things together. Just FYI on that. There's nothing that's made for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only heard of one software. I have heard of Touch Designer, but I've also heard of Resolume.
Yeah, Resolume's a good one as well. So that's more projection mapping on the fly, or if you're just doing like live DJ or VJ and projection mapping. Resolume is good. It probably, yeah. If people use both Mad Mapper and Resolume sort of interchangeably.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Belle, for that question. Let's see. Does anyone else in attendance have any other questions, or maybe you want to make a comment? You can either raise your hand or pop it on the Q&A. Well, it looks like we don't have any further questions, and we are actually right on time, so that's awesome. All right, well then I'll go ahead and close out the workshop. If there's no other questions at the moment, we'll just move on. So thank you so
Thank you,
much for
everyone.
joining
Yeah,
us today
thank you.
for Full Scope, and I hope to see everyone again next month when we invite Artwork Archive. Ethan, thank you so much for your time, for all that wonderful information. And just to let everyone know, this recording will be posted most likely by next week on our Clark County website. Ethan, I'll send you that link as soon as it's live. And then if you have any information or any downloadable content like your book that you'd like to add onto that website with the workshop video, I can definitely add that on there.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then all the attendees today will also receive a PDF copy of the announcements for your convenience, just in case you are interested in any of the projects that we announced. But otherwise, I think that's all I have for everyone. So thank you again, and have a wonderful Tuesday, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.